Hello and welcome to another episode of Open and Shut Book Reviews. I'm Ken. Thanks for joining me, and tonight's book is Kingdom of the Blind by Louise Penny. Now, I have to admit I had some trepidation about coming into this book because it's the 14th of the Inspector Gamache books. So right away I was a little nervous that I wouldn't be able to understand a lot of what was going on. However, it is a very self-contained story, and it does make allusions to things that happened in the previous book, but it covers it enough to where you don't feel lost. So I really appreciate the fact that this is a very accessible series for people, even if you haven't read all the previous 13 books. Louise Penny is a very skillful author. She has an economy of words that I greatly appreciate. She can describe a setting or a scene with very minimal description. It's amazing to me because I grew up reading authors like Tolkien, Stephen R. Donaldson, Heinlein, Robert Heinlein, Frank Herbert, the Dune series, all books that I love, but man, they can take pages to describe a blade of grass, and Louise Penny doesn't do that. It's great. I love that. So, in this particular book, Chief Inspector Gamache, who's the Chief Inspector of the Sûreté, which is the provincial police force there in Quebec, Canada. And he's on suspension for reasons, for things that happened in the previous book. There's three plots running through this whole book. You've got the plot of he is named to be the executor of a woman's will that he has never met, along with two other people, one of whom he knows personally, named Myrna, who's a psychologist and one of his neighbors in Three Pines, which is the fictional town that everything's set in. You have the second narrative thread is Inspector Gamache is looking for a supply of exceptionally powerful and addictive opioids that are new, basically. They're not your garden variety opioid or fentanyl patch or anything like that. They're called carfentanil. And so even though he's on suspension, he's still looking to find that supply of opioids before it actually hits the streets and starts killing lots of people, because it's particularly potent. And then you've got a murder mystery. So there's three narrative threads that you have to keep track of, but to her credit, Louise Penny does a very good job of interweaving these threads, and it's funny, she spends just enough time on each one to where you don't feel like when you suddenly leave one thread to come back to the next one that, oh, we're doing this again. Now I have to remember what that whole thing was about. So I appreciated that too. I really like Louise Penny's writing style, enough to where I think I'm going to go back and start at the very beginning of this series, because the character of Inspector Gamache is just what you want in an authoritarian, or authoritative, I guess is better, right? Authoritarian sounds horrible. Authoritative leader character. He cares a lot about his family, both extended and natural. He cares about his employees, his subordinates. He doesn't tell people what to do. He doesn't micromanage. He expects you to figure it out the best way that you can for you, and to learn something, and to always be questioning and thinking. He values original thought, so long as when the chips are down and he tells you to do something, you do it. Because if he tells you to do something, you just know that you need to do it. I like the character of Marie Gamache, his wife, and you don't really get a feel for her though in this book. I realize, again, it's the last book in a series of 14, so you're not going to get every character fleshed out. She seems really nice, and I've read a lot of mystery books. I got hooked on the genre fairly early with Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew mysteries, Encyclopedia Brown, and then later my stepmom introduced me to the Sue Grafton books, A is for Alibi, and going all the way through the alphabet. I like the fact that Louise Penny, for these being murder mystery books, there's not really a lot of violence. There's no sex to speak of, gratuitous or otherwise, and I don't have a problem with sex in books, but I do admire an author who can tell a story without resorting to gratuitous sex and violence. And she doesn't even bother with it and still tells very engaging, interesting stories with characters that you really come to care about. She is very, I mean, by the end of this, I wanted another book, so I am going to go back and start from the beginning. I mean, if you like mystery books, you'll like this. Louise Penny's writing style is quick and clean. She gives you all the information you need and enough detail to where you can easily picture scenes like houses and streets and back alleys and people without being overly verbose, so you're not going to feel the need to skim through a lot of this book. As far as popular casting goes, if I were to cast for the main roles from Hollywood for Armand Gamache, it would be Armand Asante. He, to me, is the perfect mix of compassion and gravitas that you need for a chief inspector. Chief Inspector. Every time I hear Chief Inspector, I think of Clouseau. Sorry, it's never going to be any other way for me. Chief Inspector, those two words are always followed by Clouseau from the Pink Panther movies. So anyway, back to casting. For Armand Gamache's wife, Ren Marie, I would cast the actress from seasons 1 and 3 of Daredevil, Eilert Zurer, who played Vanessa Fisk. So for Armand's protege, Jean-Guy Beauvoir, I would cast Dermot Mulroney. Obviously a younger Dermot Mulroney. But that's the great thing about books, is you can cast them with Hollywood actors and actresses and age them up and down as you need to. It's great. No CGI required. There's a hilarious character in here because she has no filter. Her name is Ruth, and she has a pet duck. She does not have cats. She's not a cat lady. She's a duck lady. She has a duck, and the duck goes everywhere with her. And for the character of Ruth, if I were to cast her, it would be Sandy Toksvig from the British baking show, although aged up appropriately. I can hear every word the character says in her voice, and I can picture her. And it's fun. She's the comic relief, but very biting. I think if she insults you, she sees value in you. So that's how you know that she actually cares that you're walking the planet, as if she bothers to be insulting to you. By the time you're done with this book, you're going to be sad because you're going to miss hanging out with these people. I want to go to the coffee shop they all hang out in. I want to go to Myrna's bookshop and read some books there in her comfy chairs and have a glass of mulled wine or something. To hell with Quebec winters. Holy crap, no. I like the change of seasons, and I like snow, and I love gloom, but no. That's winter. That's a whole other level of winter, and no thank you. Get this book. I'll link to the places you can get it in the description box down below. Just read it. You will do yourself a favor. You will be thankful. And if you love it, then you've got 13 more you can go back and read. So that's its own gift. So as always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions for me or suggestions on books that I could read, go ahead and send them to me, ken@openandshutreviews.com. But that's it. Until next time, I'm Ken McKim. You take care. Read more books.